Yo, we step up in the scene, check your engine is clean. DPF guys got your ride smoking green. No block, no drag, just pure machine. Come show us your truck, we'll make it pristine. We just wanna know, can your diesel uphold? Bring something dirty, we'll turn it to gold. It's like this, we clean up your flow. Now your engine is gliding. It's time to hit the road.
Okay, folks, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/DPF guys, or go to YouTube and just look for DPF guys so you don't miss any of our content. Now, if you're catching this from someplace else other than YouTube, head over to youtube.com/DPF guys, or just search for DPF guys on YouTube and join the action. So I'm James from DPF guys, your go-to for diesel after-treatment services. Whether you're an owner-operator with one truck, or you manage a fleet, or maybe run a repair shop or a truck dealership, we've got the expertise to keep you running, clean, and compliant. We handle everything with the diesel engine, from your light and medium-duty pickup trucks, of course, the big heavy-duty diesels, your Kenworths and Freightliners and Volvos and Macs and Peterbilts, etc., to passenger vehicles and RVs. Yes, diesel RVs, we do work in the DPFs for those, to off-road equipment like tractors, skid steers, and even stationary equipment like generators and wood chippers. I don't know why I thought of wood chippers, but they are diesel powered, and some of them do have diesel, the newer ones have diesel after treatment on them, DPFs to worry about. We like to say if it has a DPF, we've got you covered. Call or text us at 404-999-1361 for more info. 404-999-1361. That's us. If you are catching this live, or even if you're watching it after it's been recorded, and have any questions or comments, drop them in the chat down below. If we catch them live, I'll answer them live during the session. I've got about 10 questions to quick go through. So if you do ask me a question, I'm going to quick check to see what we got going on here. No questions just yet, but we do have the questions from the previous week. A quick disclaimer for you. If you have any truck issues, make sure you consult your mechanic for specific issues. You can definitely call or text us at that 404-999-1361 number, 404-999-1361. And it can take us a little bit to get back to you because we're always kind of in the middle of something, but we can help kind of sort things out or work with your mechanic. But you want to make sure that you talk to somebody who knows your truck. We don't want to steer you in the wrong direction because you're far away and we're just kind of making some guesses for you. They're generally pretty good guesses, but before you actually wrench on something, I want to make sure you have somebody you know and trust locally help you out. And also, pricing discussed here is for reference only, not an official quote. If you'd like pricing specific to you and your truck, give us a call or a text. You know where, 404-999-1361, 404-999-1361. And then Jeremy, if you're out there, my partner in crime, and one of the other DPF guys, if you're out there watching with your family, shout out to everybody out there. But let's get rocking with question number one. Okay, off of TikTok, what's the big question? What's wrong with soot in the air? In other words, meaning, why not just let the soot fly into the air? What can, what could go wrong? As an aside, I did spend some time in China a few years back. It was 2017, and they have they're getting emissions on their diesel vehicles, but when I was there were no diesel emissions, and man, it was a mess. Everything was just dirty and black, and some of that comes from burning coal, but a lot of that comes from the diesel trucks bombing around in these cities. And I was glad to get back to the U.S. because you don't really realize, how clean the air is from how it used to be. Anyway, so what's wrong with soot in the air? And I guess if soot was nothing more than just black carbon, there'd be issues. You wouldn't want to have just carbon in the air, but it's more than just that. So it's not just black carbon. It's a harmful mix of stuff. and it contains heavy metals, which are just no good. They build up in the soil, and that's really bad. Sulfur compounds and toxic hydrocarbons, and the combination of these are known carcinogens. And no, if you just walk past a semi truck without emissions on it, you're not going to get cancer immediately. But there's 3 million trucks on the road, and the trucks drive 300 billion with a B miles per year, and that is basically almost 1 billion pounds of soot being dumped in the air, and it does add up. So you want to keep the soot out of the air. And what else? It basically, look at the diesel soot as like a tiny micro-sized chemical hazard coming out of the exhaust pipe. And they're really, really small. Diesel soot particles are incredibly tiny, measured in microns. And really they're about 2.5 microns, which is one of the standards of the PM 2.5 or PM 2.5, which is to capture these small soot particles down to 2.5 microns. And just to give you some idea of the scale of that, how small is, 2.5 microns is 30 times smaller than the width of a human hair. So you could cut a human hair in, across and put 30 pieces of soot on it. That's how small these particles are. And what happens when you've got really tiny particulate matter, your body's, designed to capture the typical dust that you would experience in the real world. But when you get tiny particles like this soot, they're small enough to sneak past all of your body's defense systems. And so they're going to get deep into your lungs, and they're also small enough to cross the barrier through your lungs and will get in your blood and really causes some issues. Now, in your lungs, obviously, you're going to have respiratory issues, asthma, bronchitis, and just basic lung problems. But the real big ones people don't think about is how something you breathe can get into your blood and literally in your bloodstream can cause heart attacks and strokes and really mess you up. Also a cancer risk, long-term exposure to diesel soot has been linked to increased lung cancer. And diesel exhaust, untreated diesel exhaust, headaches, dizziness, fatigue. Don't be huffing your diesel pipe. There's been some, pretty serious studies about this. A 2005 study by the University of Tennessee found that idling diesel trucks at travel centers significantly increased air pollution, exposing truck drivers to very high and harmful levels of particulate matter. Kind of a thing to remember. If you're a trucker, kind of protect yourself. You want to make sure, you don't want to sleep between two deleted trucks that are idling, because you'll be breathing that exhaust soot all night long. Or if you happen to have a deleted truck and you idle it while you sleep, guess what you're doing? You're breathing that exhaust soot. I'd recommend against it. And, kind of as an aside, if you're fueling your tank, don't stand right over the, over the nozzle and breathe the diesel vapors. And again, none of these things are going to kill you the first time you smell them, but you do it for weeks, months, years, and it will ultimately cause harm. And you want to avoid that, because you truck drivers are a very vital part of our day-to-day lives. And I like having toilet paper and food and lumber and all the other stuff you guys do. And what else? The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, really highlighted diesel exhaust as a source of health problems, including long-term risks like cancer. And breathing in soot affects the drivers, their families, and the communities near the highways and the truck stops of the travel centers. So keeping your truck running clean doesn't just protect the environment, it protects you and the people around you. So that's why we don't let the soot go into the air. Number 2, from Mr. Dave Willits, also from TikTok. I did a video. In fact, if you're not subscribed to my TikTok channel, you want to make sure you do that. I did a video a while back just showing how we capture the soot, and how all the soot that we capture doesn't go to the landfill, though it could. It's classified as non-hazardous from the standpoint of transportation, not non-hazardous from the standpoint of exposure, but it's not explosive or corrosive or anything like that. So it doesn't need to be placarded. But instead of putting it in the landfill, we actually send it to a recycler and they recycle it. So he goes, oh, so what do you do with the bucket of soot? Is it better storing it or dispersing it in the atmosphere? Again, here's another person who says, well, why, let's just put it in the air. It'll magically disappear. Well, I guess if you're driving a truck and it's dumping out clouds of black soot and you're up in the cab and the soot's going behind you, I guess in theory, why should you care? It's not affecting you, but that's not what we're talking about. So that's a good question. So at DPF Guys, we just don't toss the soot aside. We recycle it. And people often go, oh, yeah, right, you sure you do. But we really do. The soot collected during the DPF cleaning process is actually refined and used to produce industrial materials like cement, asphalt, and other construction products. It can also be used in the manufacturing of tires. It can also be used in some steel manufacturing. And also, depending upon what the markets are for precious metals, there are trace amounts of precious metals in the diesel soot. And that's going to be like platinum, palladium, rhodium. And if the prices for those metals justify it, they will actually process the soot and get the precious metals out and use those. So none of it goes to waste and none of it goes to the landfill. And good news for everybody who breathes, which I think is myself and a few other people, it doesn't go into the air. So if it does get in the air, it contributes to poor air quality, respiratory issues, and other health problems. In fact, going back to the story about when I visited China, there's a thing called AQI, or the Air Quality Index. And many Asian countries, you'll have an app on your phone or whatever it is. And it's funny because, around here you talk about the weather. Oh, is it going to be hot or cold or windy or, cloudy or rainy, whatever it might be. They really don't have those conversations in China. They talk about the AQI. What's the AQI? What's it going to be tomorrow? What should I do? Because the air quality can be so bad that it really is it's people talk about it and they'll look at this and say, oh, the AQ, just like you'd say, it's going to be cold tomorrow, we're going to have to bundle up. They'll say the AQI is going to be, I'm not sure if it's a big number or a little number, forget, but the AQI is going to be bad tomorrow. So make sure you wear your breathing equipment. And they literally will wear masks like they are painting to keep the soot out of their lungs. So when we recycle the soot, it allows us to safely manage all of this junk without polluting all the air we breathe. And recycling the soot is about keeping the trucking industry sustainable and safe. And it's proof that you can run a truck very effectively without creating unnecessary junk. Dumping soot in the atmosphere is like, I guess, like throwing your garbage all over the neighborhood instead of just putting it in the trash can. That's kind of how we look at that. So, and yes, you could argue like, yeah, but what about all the energy it takes to make that trash can? I'm saving, I'm doing the good thing by just dumping this garbage all over the neighborhood. But I think your neighbors might disagree. All right. Before we go to question number 3, I'm going to check to see if anything came in from YouTube. It did not. All right, let's go to question number 3. This is also from TikTok. Lila K. John. Of course, I'm mispronouncing all of these terribly. I don't know how to pronounce these TikTok names. So just curious, what is that white dust cloud that from time to time you'll see come out and float off of the newer trucks? First off, it's not uncommon to notice a white vapor or mist from the exhaust of modern diesel trucks, especially during startup in cooler conditions. When exhaust gases cool rapidly as they would as they hit the air, water vapor condenses, creating a visible white mist. So you might actually be seeing that. This is typically harmless and should dissipate as the engine warms up. Or what you might be seeing, maybe, is a small amount of diesel exhaust fluid or DEF residue. There can be some residual, like almost a chalky substance, kind of, and it's like a ammonia salt that can build up over time, and you might see a puff of that. It's not really likely, but you might. And of course, DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, is used in the selective catalytic reduction system, the SCR, to reduce NOx, which are nitrogen oxides. The emission systems on a diesel engine actually is kind of a two-part system that work symbiotically. They can work independently, but they work together. So the DPF catches the black soot, catches the particles. It's kind of like the vacuum cleaner bag, and the SCR is what treats everything else. So once the exhaust will come into the DPF, and you could literally see it. It will look like smoke. The DPF catches it, catches all those particles, because that's all smoke is particles. And then the clean exhaust will pass through, but that clean exhaust may not have any soot or ash in it, but it will have it'll have NOx, or nitrogen oxides, in it, which is a natural a byproduct of combustion, of internal combustion. Anytime you're burning a hydrocarbon, anytime you're burning a fossil fuel, you'll get NOx. More of it, less of it, but you'll get NOx. And so what happens is the DEF works, interacts with the NOx and the SCR, and that's what catalyzes the NOx and eliminates that. But after the exhaust comes off of the after treatment system, the emission system, there's really not much in there. In fact, all you're going to see in there are really two things. One of them is nitrogen. And nitrogen makes up about 78% of the air you breathe. So it's part of the air, and water vapor. So all that comes out is nitrogen and water. And water vapor makes up about 60% of the human body. I have had Friday nights where 60% of my human body is probably made up of light beer, but yeah, so basically nitrogen and water. But if you are seeing stuff come off of your exhaust system, you might be having an issue. A properly functioning diesel exhaust system should not emit visible white, gray, or black smoke. And persistent smoke of any type can indicate issues like coolant leaks, fuel injection problems, or clogged filters, or a strong ammonia smell. That's one of the things that people will say is like, oh, I was buying this truck and it smelled like cat pee. Well, the deal is it shouldn't, because if you have a strong ammonia odor, that could suggest a malfunction in the SCR system or excessive DEF usage. If you observe persistent white smoke, unusual dust clouds, strong odors, give us a call or text. There it is, 404-999, not 3161, 1361. Why did I hit 3161? My teleprompter. So give us a call or text at 404-999-1361, or have your truck checked by a mechanic, or have your mechanic give us a call. We're happy to talk to your mechanic as well. All right, question number 4 by Cook M. Ryan from TikTok. Now, I do get these kind of gotcha questions where they want to be like, ha, gotcha. So the question is, any DPFs on container ships? What about airplanes? Only people that pay for emissions are everyday people, not those who should. And, the question presents a false equivalence fallacy, comparing emissions from different modes of transport without considering their unique operational contexts or regulatory framework. So the point is, it's always easy to say, well, I shouldn't have to have emissions on my fill in the blank on my truck because they don't happen to have a DPF on an airplane, or they don't have DPFs on the big container ships. So you're right. Large marine engines typically do not use DPFs due to their immense size and operational requirements. But some ships do employ other emissions controls technology, such as scrubbers, to reduce pollutants, but most don't. And aircraft engines are designed differently, do not use DPFs, obviously. And due to the design of a jet-powered airplane, there's no practical way to utilize any sorts of DPF emissions controls. The emissions for aviation's engines are managed through other means, including engine design improvements and operational efficiency. Now, let's go back to your question about ships. It is true These big container ships are really powered by diesel engines, huge diesel engines that produce hundreds of thousands of horsepower and torque and everything else. And they do emit approximately 450, 1,000 grams of soot per nautical mile, which is a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And it's a lot more than it's emitted by a truck. In fact, it's about 450 times more. A typical truck will emit between 1 and 2 grams of particulate matter or soot per mile. And then to mention the planes, an air cargo plane will emit about 600 grams of particulate matter per mile. But you can't just look at the soot per mile. Because, yes, if you're pulling a trailer behind your truck, you're pulling, 40,000 pounds, which is good, but you have to look at how much cargo you can haul while your engine is producing pollution. And, while your truck might haul 40,000 pounds, a typical fully loaded container ship will carry between 250,000 to 350,000 tons, not pounds, tons of cargo. So that means that even though a cargo ship may dump substantially more soot into the atmosphere per mile traveled, you need to look at the amount of soot emitted per ton carried for every mile traveled, or ton per mile. And if you do the math, a cargo ship is only, per ton, if that ship hauls a ton for a mile, it's only going to be putting in a tiny amount, 0.0013 to 0.0018 grams. So what is that? Just a thousandth of a gram or so. Like less than the weight of a piece of pollen. So which is actually much cleaner. It's hard to believe, per ton mile than a typical semi without emissions. So that great big cargo ship is actually producing less soot than a deleted truck when you factor in, how many tons they can haul per pound of soot output. So that's really kind of what we're looking at here. Compared to cargo ships, trucks emit approximately 0.05 grams of soot per ton per mile, and basically emit none with the DPF. But if a deleted truck is going to, kind of an order of magnitude more soot per ton per mile. If that makes sense. Now, here's an interesting thing. Air cargo planes, like a 747 hauling cargo between Los Angeles and Hong Kong or whatever, they emit 6 grams of soot per ton mile. So, exponentially more soot than your deleted truck emits, making them so if you're going to haul cargo by a 747, that is literally the dirtiest way to haul cargo, as far as tons of cargo hauled per grams of soot. Also, going back to the ships, they never deadhead. So you're not going to, haul 250,000 tons of cargo from, a port in Hong Kong to LA, and then send the ship back empty. You're going to load it back up again. So that thing, when it's chugging, is always loaded. Where unlike a truck is, you're going to be deadhead, you're going to be, running empty or light. So you'll still be producing the same amount of soot, but not hauling anything. So your soot per ton hauled goes up. Also with cargo ships, they normally, when they're out to sea, run the heavy bunker fuel, which is viscous, almost waxy, very high sulfur fuel oil. And they'll switch from that junk to a cleaner burning diesel when they're near ports and populated areas to reduce local pollution. Airplanes, while they offer the speed, air cargo planes emit the most soot. per ton mile compared to ships and trucks due to their lower cargo capacity and much higher fuel consumption per mile. So if you need to move something over the ocean and ship it, don't fly it. I hope that makes sense. All right, but before I go to number 5, let's see if anything came in. Oh yes, here we go. All right, here's a question for, hopefully you're watching right now, Roy. Thank you for the question that came in via YouTube. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, and it's, it's sometime in the future, you're watching the recording, please leave your comments or questions below or over on the side or above or wherever they end up being, and I will definitely see them and answer them. So the question from Roy is, during winter, can you idle the truck at night for 8 hours a day? Will that cause problems in the long run? So here's what I tell people. In a perfect world, your truck would only be running when it's actually, pulling something. But guess what? If you've got a truck you've got to sleep in, well, you need to be comfortable. You need to be warm in the winter, cool in the summer. And one way to avoid idling your truck is to get an APU. I mean, that can pay for itself very quickly. Now, again, an APU ain't cheap, but it's definitely worth it. And the trucks are designed to idle. And they'll go into a passive regen to burn off any soot that builds up or anything like that. So, first and foremost, take care of yourself. The last thing you want to do is be uncomfortable, not sleep well, and fall asleep while you're driving. I mean, don't do anything like that. Be comfy, be warm, watch TV, watch Netflix, be cool in the summer, idle your truck, all you need to do that. It'll take care of itself. Now, but if you have the option to get an APU, I would highly recommend that. That's going to put less strain on your emission system, but also will make your oil last longer. It'll burn substantially less diesel fuel. It'll be less wear and tear on the engine. So by all means, idle away, be comfortable, be cool, be warm, watch TV, microwave your popcorn. Don't worry about it. The truck will take care of itself. But if you can pop an APU on a truck or get a truck with an APU, you can then stay warm, stay cool, make your popcorn, watch Netflix, and not have to worry about idling your truck and save yourself a lot of money as well. So, Roy, please, by all means, be comfortable, idle your truck all you want. It'll take care of itself. But if you have an APU, that is actually the best answer you can possibly have. All right. Thank you very much for that question. I hope I get a couple of more. Roy, you are a rock star. Anybody else there watching, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss anything cool. Okay, number 5. This is a good one. I really like this question because I learned something. Excuse me. You ever see a freight train hauling coal? The soot coming off these cars is incredible. With coal hauling trains, I'm thinking that one of the things that you're seeing is probably not the exhaust, not the soot coming out of the locomotive. You're just seeing coal dust coming off the top of the trail, the open top rail cars. So that's a whole separate issue. But let's talk about the diesel electric, locomotive. And the just so you know, they up until recently, none of those locomotives had any sort of particulate matter. They had no DPF filters, no DPFs on them. They would have EGR to reduce the NOx emissions, but nothing to capture the soot. I understand that some of the more modern locomotives do have some sort of DPF on them. I'm looking forward to the day where I get to clean a DPF off of a locomotive. That'll be super cool. But let's compare your truck to a diesel locomotive. But before I do that and start coughing, because I'm going to tickle my throat, cheers. It's only tea, really. I'm not opposed to having a little Irish in my tea, but I don't have any tonight. So anyways, compared to a truck, which normally will dump 1 to 2 grams of soot per mile into the air or into their DPF, if your truck's deleted, you're going to be putting 1 to 2 grams of soot in the air. A locomotive traveling the same mile will produce about 40 to 50 grams of polluting soot. Now, you might look at that and say, wow, that's super dirty. And I guess, in theory it is. But we need to kind of go back to the same equation we used for the big container ship. You need to look at the amount of soot produced while that locomotive is running compared to the tons of cargo hauled. Considering that railroads can move a ton of freight over, this astounding. A railroad, a train can move 1 ton of freight 400 miles on a single gallon of diesel. That just blew my friggin' mind. So what that translates to, again, we're going to use this ton per, grams of soot per ton of cargo moved per mile, right? So let me just say that again. A locomotive can haul 1 ton 400 miles in a single gallon of fuel. So the particulate emissions, the soot emissions, when that train is running, equals 0.0025 grams of soot per ton mile. 0.0025 grams of soot to haul a ton per mile. Makes rail transport one of the most efficient modes of transportation and literally the cleanest in terms of particulate emissions. So, and again, like your truck, as I said before, most modern locomotives are equipped with technology such as exhaust gas recirculation, or EGR, to reduce NOx emissions. And some of the newest models are now beginning to incorporate diesel particulate filters, or DPFs, to further reduce particulate emissions even lower than what they already are. So I know this is hard to believe. It took me a moment to get this to go through my thick skull. But the diesel locomotive you see chugging down the rails is cleaner than anything on the road when you consider how much it can haul and how efficient and clean it actually is. Who knew? All right. Number 6. It says, ever get behind a truck during a regen? I've gotten headaches from the fumes. Didn't happen before 2008. So I have a question. Kind of a serious question. I have to ask, what the heck are you doing intentionally breathing truck exhaust? Because that's maybe part of the problem right here. Truck tailpipes aren't exactly the best place to hang out, just so you know. Anyway, so modern trucks, especially those equipped with advanced emission systems post 2008, produce exhaust that's primarily nitrogen. We talked about that. And again, nitrogen makes up 78% of the air that you and I breathe, and a little bit of water vapor, which makes up 60% of the human body and a whole bunch of the earth as well. And that's really what's being emitted. So these are the byproducts of the diesel particulate filter, selective catalytic reduction, or SCR, and other after-treatment systems designed to drastically reduce harmful pollutants like the soot and the NOx. So during the regeneration cycle, the truck's after-treatment system burns off soot collected in the DPF at high temperatures, usually 1,000, 1,100 degrees or so. And the exhaust may feel warmer, but it may smell a little different. But if everything's functioning correctly, you shouldn't notice anything harmful. And if for some reason you really do enjoy huffing diesel truck exhaust and it makes you feel a little woozy or gives you a headache, the truck might be having a malfunction with its DPF, SCR, or other emissions components. The SCR does have 2 catalysts in it. One of them is the first stage, which converts the NOx to ammonia. And immediately after that, you have the second stage, or the ammonia slip filter. And that's what actually turns the ammonia that's left from the catalyzation of the NOx into nitrogen and water. And if it's not tuned correctly, or is failing, or is out of adjustment, or something's not quite right, yes, you might have an issue where the ammonia is getting out and you're going to cause you'll notice a strong smell. and a smell of ammonia. Some people say it smells like cat pee. And if you're huffing that exhaust, it could contribute to your discomfort. If you suspect something is wrong, I recommend that the truck be inspected by a qualified technician. Modern systems are designed to keep emissions clean and safe, but maybe it's fine. It's, for you, it may be time to find a new pastime other than sniffing truck exhaust. Try hiking or bird watching, anything that keeps you safe and a safe distance from that diesel exhaust. So modern trucks are built to emit cleaner exhaust than ever before. If you're getting headaches, it's not because the emission systems are failing. They're there to protect you for everyone, including those who might accidentally or intentionally, in your case, get too close. All right. How's it going so far? What's the number to call or text? It is 404 999 1361, 404 999 1361. I hope you reach out to us via text and we can help you out. I'm going to quick check again what we've got going on before we go to number 7. All right, we got nothing going on there, which is fine. Just want to make sure I'm not missing any comments here. Okay, question number 7. Okay, so this is from Brian O'Connor from TikTok. So what happens when the vehicle does a regeneration? The soot magically disappears, does it? And this is kind of one of those things where he's kind of challenging me. And I hate to tell you, no magic involved. Just some high-tech science and engineering doing its job. So during a regeneration or a regen, the diesel particulate filter heats up to extremely high temperatures, burning off the soot, the carbon particles, in which basically the soot is unburned diesel. And so it can burn that into basically gases that pass through the DPF filter and then are treated by the SCR, which breaks down all of the NOx into, remember, nitrogen and water. And just a real quick summary of what a regen, what it does is burns off the soot. But how it generates that temperature is during a regen, which is either going to be passive, and that regen happens automatically while you're just driving down the road. A rolling regen, a passive regen. There's a couple different things they're called. You may not even notice it. You may notice a light come on. You may notice the engine running a little bit differently, or you may not notice anything at all. And you can do a passive or rolling regen. If it's been a long time between DPF cleanings, the truck might call for a parked regen or even a forced regen. But the regeneration or regen process means that the truck will add a little bit of unburned, they call it hydrocarbon, basically unburned diesel fuel. That's what they mean by hydrocarbon, into the exhaust stream, a fine mist of that. And the exhaust comes off the engine. It's going to be about 700 or 800 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't do the math in my head to make it Celsius. You can do that yourself. And when that's hot, be good temperature to bake a pizza, but it's not hot enough to burn the soot into the gases and turn it into, gas and a little bit of ash left over. So you need to make more heat. How do you make more heat? You have the diesel oxidation catalyst, the DOC, the DOC. That's the first part. The exhaust flows through there. That little added unburned diesel or hydrocarbon, that mist is passing the exhaust. It hits the precious metals, the catalytic metals inside the DOC. And those metals are platinum, palladium, and rhodium. I talked about them all the time. And it will then take the exhaust temperature that's hot, but not hot enough, and it will at 700-800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will bump it up to roaring hot 1,000 degrees, 1,100 degrees. And then that temperature is what actually converts that built up soot into nothing more than gases that go downstream and are processed by the SCR and leaving behind just a fraction of a percent of ash that's trapped in the DPF and will eventually need to get cleaned out. So basically that's what happens. The non-combustible components of the soot turn into ash, which stays in the DPF until it's cleaned during maintenance. The burning diesel fuel produces NOx, which are harmful pollutants. Those things are taken out of the system by the combination of the SCR, the selective catalytic reducer, which is the tube that it flows through, and then the NOx liquid is injected in, and all that's left after that is done is water and nitrogen. And this process ensures that the exhaust coming out of a properly functioning modern truck is primarily nitrogen and water vapor. And that's really it. These systems just, they don't make the soot magically disappear. They do reduce it by 99 point some percent. Anything that's left behind is trapped in the DPF, where it can be removed during the cleaning or maintenance process. And then any of the invisible but harmful gases are then processed out by the SCR. So no, the soot doesn't just disappear into a magical void or another dimension. And it is captured and it is kept out of the air, which is kind of cool, actually, if you think about it. I hope that answers your question. Anyway, moving on. That was number 7. If anybody does have any questions we can answer, please give us a call or text at 404-999-1361. 404-999-1361. Would love to help you out. All right, number 8. What is your thought on using Lucas? I don't think he meant dog cleaner. I could ask Coco. DPF cleaner in your fuel or Pittsburgh Power Catalyst. All right, so I'm going to share my opinion on this, and it's not anti-Lucas or anti-Pittsburgh Power or anything else for that matter, but I'm just going to kind of give you, my perspective on this. So Lucas DPF Cleaner is a fuel additive marketed for both gasoline and diesel engines. Now, that's the Lucas that I'm familiar with that people often ask me about. This will not hurt your diesel engine, but it's more of a general purpose additive. While Lucas has its benefits, I personally recommend using a product specifically formulated for diesel engines like Clean Air Fleet Premium Diesel Additive, which is tailored to address the unique needs of diesel-powered vehicles. Now, Pittsburgh Power is actually specifically designed for diesel-powered vehicles and is a popular choice among truckers and works as a combustion catalyst to improve fuel burn and reduce emissions. So what are my thoughts here? Pittsburgh Power does a great job as a combustion catalyst. It only focuses on one issue, which is improving your combustion efficiency, which may gain you a little bit of fuel economy. And also, anytime that you can increase the combustion efficiency of your diesel fuel, if it burns more completely, it'll produce less soot, which means there's less soot for the DPF to worry about. And you should be able to go longer periods between DPF cleanings. So why do I recommend Clean Air Fleet Premium Diesel Additive? And let me just, excuse me while I whip this out. So this, my friends, is the Clean Air Fleet Diesel Additive. We are offering a 10% discount on your first case order. A case is 4 bottles of Clean Air Fleet, 4 gallons of Clean Air Fleet. And those 4 gallons can treat 1,280 gallons of diesel fuel. Yeah, so each bottle does 320 gallons of diesel fuel. And if anybody wants to order your first case of the Clean Air Fleet fuel treatment, you know what to do. Text me at 404-999-1361 and we'll get you hooked up. So why do I recommend that stuff? And it really came down to, hearing firsthand stories from drivers that were running the Clean Air Fleet and the good luck that they had. And then eventually I did get in touch with the actual manufacturer. It's a really decent company, some good people. Kurt and Clint run that company, solid guys. But Clean Air Fleet goes beyond just improving the combustion by offering a wide range of benefits. One of them is cetane boosting, which improves ignition, lowers cylinder temperatures, and reduces NOx emissions. With Clean Air Fleet, you may notice that you use less DEF. And which means you spend less money on DEF, which is not a bad thing. Another thing is water is the enemy of your fuel system. You want to get that water out of your diesel. Yes, your fuel water separator or your Davco will do a pretty good job of it, but it still will leave the water in the fuel. So water demulsification. And emulsification is when you combine two liquids and they, never the twain shall part. And demulsification is where you break them apart and the water falls to the bottom of your tank. And then all that your truck is sipping on is pure diesel. And water causes it's a nuisance. It can cause a lot of damage, can blow the tips off your injectors and all sorts of stuff. So you want to keep that water out of there. It does get the water out of it. And the only way that you can have bio, like bacteria or algae or whatever growing in your diesel fuel is that those living things do require water. And so if there's water in your diesel fuel, you are more likely to have fouling due to, to algae or any other junk that gets in there. So get the water out, and that will also eliminate or prevent, the biologics that can grow in your fuel. Another thing, added lubricity, make your diesel fuel slippery again. So it restores lost lubricity and protects the pumps and injectors. And this is especially important with modern diesel, which is the ultra low sulfur or ULSD diesel. Back in the day when they had high sulfur diesel, that sulfur acted as a lubricant and would keep your fuel pump lubricated and your little pins in your injectors moving good. Since they took the sulfur out of the diesel, they've engineered parts to be harder and a little more resistant to abrasion. But anytime that you can get the lubricity back in, that will improve the lifespan and performance of your entire fuel system. And then reduced soot lowers smoke and soot through the emission system, and that will help keep your sensors cleaner, help your EGR cooler, stop your seventh injector from getting gunked up, and help your DPF perform better and last longer. And I have seen this firsthand. And then the one thing that people often don't talk about is asphaltene, because they're not aware of it. Oftentimes that, someone's diesel fuel will be murky and they will think that that's actually like a algae or a bacteria. And really it's asphaltene floating around in there. And you keep the asphaltene out, and that keeps fuel stable and prevents clogging in the injectors and the fuel lines. What asphaltene is kind of like it says, it's like asphalt. It's like a gooey, oily hydrocarbon gum. And asphaltene exists naturally in crude oil. It's refined out. The asphaltene is formed in crude oil under, guess what, pressure and temperature. And even though your diesel fuel has been fully refined, all the asphaltene has been out of it, guess what's in your engine? Pressure and temperature. And that will form asphaltenes. Those will build up. And it breaks that down, gets it out of the system, and prevents it from forming again. In fact, what's interesting is this happens almost all the time, is, one thing I can tell you is you start using Clean Air Fleet. And I always warn people, I said, after your first half a tank or tank or so, you'll probably notice that your truck's power kind of seems to drop. Like, why is that? I'm using this fuel additive. Shouldn't it go up? Well, what happens is, all of this junk that's built up in your fuel system, all this asphaltene and carbon and things like that will start to come loose and start to come loose and start to come loose. And what does it do? It circles around and gets into your fuel filter. Your fuel filter will plug up. And that's what's causing the reduction in performance. So I always tell people, if you're going to start using Clean Air Fleet, plan on having a fuel filter on hand, run a tank or two, and then, be ready to replace that fuel filter, because that means it's working. And, it's proven, tested over 100 million miles and counting, and backed by a track record of results across various diesel engines. Now, I'm not going to sit here because someone might say, oh, I really like Pittsburgh Power, or I really like Lucas, or I really like Hot Shot Secret, or fill in the blank. I'm not going to, make fun of you for not using Clean Air Fleet. Go ahead. If it works, you like it, by all means, keep using it. But if you'd like to try something else, by all means, um, text or call us at 404-999-1361 and take advantage of our 10% first case discount. Get a case of 4 gallons to treat 1,280 gallons and do the Pepsi challenge. See what you think. And if you're not using an additive, I would say definitely start off with Clean Air Fleet. I think you'll be very happy. And the customer support that you get from us and from the guys at Clean Air Fleet, I think cannot be beat. And that's definitely, something to think about. So what are my final thoughts on additives? So additives like Lucas and Pittsburgh Power and others can provide benefits, but Clean Air Fleet kind of offers a comprehensive solution that tackles multiple aspects that every diesel engine needs to take care of. Oh, and also anti-gel. So if you're going from a warm climate to a cold climate, using Clean Air Fleet will prevent your fuel from gelling, and that's a big deal. I forgot about that one. So if you're serious about keeping your engine and your truck running cleaner and longer, Clean Air Fleet is really the winner. So think of it this way. Lucas is like, I don't know, kind of a multivitamin that's missing some stuff that your engine might have stuff that your engine doesn't need. And Pittsburgh Power, I think the best description of Pittsburgh Power is like an energy drink. It's like Monster or Red Bull, but it's missing, some other, healthy additives. But Clean Air Fleet is like a complete, healthy and balanced meal for your truck's fuel system. It's got everything your engine needs to thrive and nothing that your engine does not need. So it's really the way to go. If you're kind of deciding, I'd say give Clean Air Fleet a call or a try. And if you want to learn more about it, 404-999-1361, or go to cleanairfleet.com, which is the website actually managed by the Clean Air Fleet company and the two brothers that own the company, and talk to them. They'd be happy to talk to you about that. And not to belabor the point about Clean Air Fleet, but they do, manufacture this additive, but they also have a full system where they have 1 micron fuel filtration and 1 micron oil filtration systems that you can put on your truck. And those are an absolute game changer as well. I'll talk about those in some future video, but if you contact the guys at Clean Air Fleet, go to cleanairfleet.com, and they can talk to you about the whole system, or we can tell you as well. And you know how? Give us a call or a text at 404-999-1361. Screenshot that baby. All right. On to number 9. From Jimmy DeNeedle. Doesn't Scania run a 6 or 7 horsepower engine without that nonsense? And guess what? This is true. Scania does offer robust engines in the 600 to 700 horsepower range, such as the DC16 084A. That's a 600 pony engine, and a DC16 077A. That is 700 horsepower. Those things are cranking. And amazingly enough, these engines comply with stringent emissions standards by utilizing advanced technologies like the SCR and EGR. So sad to say that those of you who were hoping that the Scania engines would eliminate all emissions, they don't. They still have to use an EGR and SCR. And they do require DEF fluid, also known as AdBlue, as part of their SCR system. AdBlue is what they call DEF in Europe. Excuse me. So by integrating the SCR and DEF, Scania ensures their engines are globally compliant and environmentally responsible without compromising power or efficiency. So Scania's engines are designed to deliver exceptional power while meeting modern environmental regulations. But apparently, from what I could read, these Scania engines, yes, they have an EGR cooler. Yes, they have an SCR to eliminate NOx. But somehow, some very, very smart engineering team at Scania has gotten the engine so efficient that there is literally no soot left over to be processed by a DOC. I find this astounding. I'd love to know how they do this because, the deal is if you had a diesel engine running at the optimum speed and load, it'll run, basically 100% efficiently or darn close, or burn 100% efficiently. There'll be some waste heat and things like that. But if you can completely burn diesel fuel, there's nothing left. Just like burning diesel fuel in a garage heater, basically that, it burns like a jet engine. There's very little left. So, I want to learn more about this. Will we ever see these engines in the US? I don't know. Time will tell. If anybody knows more about this, or if there's somebody from Scania watching this, I would love to learn more about it. Okay, before we go on to our last but not least question, let's check to see if there's anything. Oh, we got another one. All right, so this is, Roy, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. He says, going to order a case. How often do you add a gallon on a 200-gallon truck? So what you would do is, hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. So a single gallon of Clean Air Fleet will treat 320 gallons of diesel fuel. So what you would do is you would initially fill up your truck, and I normally would recommend double dosing it. So however that works, is it 10 ounces of Clean Air Fleet per gallon? So you would burn up initially you'd probably use a whole gallon of Clean Air Fleet to treat everything, and then you would just be if you put in, let me show you. Hold on a second. How you measure this is on the side of the bottle. Can you see that? It's graduated 320 gallons down to 0. And so if you put in 100 gallons, you would pour this starting at 320. You would dump in Clean Air Fleet till you got down to 220. If you put in 200 gallons, you go down to 120. And then you're good to go. And so every time you fill up your truck, you add some more of the Clean Air Fleet. And the next question people ask is, do I have to use it every time? Well, you don't have to, but you'll probably notice that if you don't use it for a period of time, you'll miss it and will begin to use it again. And what else? Clean Air Fleet is one of the few additives that you can add to a diesel fuel that there's no harm in overdosing it, where with Pittsburgh Power, that stuff is you don't want to overdose it. You want to use exactly the amount that's specified, and not any more, not a teaspoon more than you should. A, it's expensive. B, it will potentially damage your DPF and your engine. Where Clean Air Fleet, you can definitely overdose it. You'll be kind of wasting it, but it won't harm anything. So if you ever like, oh shoot, did I put it in? You put it in again, you're not going to hurt anything. But other than the fact that you'll be using more than you should. So to answer your question there, Roy, you just use the measurement on the side. I would probably double dose it the first time. You don't really have to, but we always like to shock the system right away. And I would recommend having a spare fuel filter on hand, because it's probably going to start loosening some stuff up and it'll plug up your fuel filter. Thank you very much for your order. If you need to text us, just simply say, hey, this is Roy. Text us at 404-999-1361. I will send you a link to place the order, or I can just give you a call and take the order over the phone. We can make sure we do it the old-fashioned way if you would like. And then it'll go out UPS ground. You'll have it in a couple of days, and it'll be great. And again, anybody who's watching this who orders a case of their first case of Clean Air Fleet, case of 4 gallons, it's $36.50 a gallon. $36.50 times 4, minus 10% plus some shipping, so on and so forth, will get you the best deal possible. You can also order it directly from the guys at Clean Air Fleet. That's fine with me. Just make sure you let them know that you talk to me or listen to me. All right, let's go to the last but not least question. Number 10. What do we got here? Oh my God, we just been talking about Clean Air Fleet. Is there an additive to run cleaner to help help the filters? Absolutely. And this just reiterates the other stuff we've talked about. Clean Air Fleet premium diesel fuel additive. You want to order some? We'll give you a 10% discount on your first case. Just give us a call or a text, 404-999-1361. And this is what it looks like. A single gallon of this will treat 320 gallons full of diesel fuel. You can order it right from us, or you can go to cleanairfleet.com. And the Clean Air Fleet is designed specifically to enhance fuel performance, reduce emissions, and protect your diesel engine's emission system, which is your DPF. So how does it work? We talked about this before. Restores lost lubricity that you lost with the removing the sulfur from the diesel. And it will have the lubricity the equivalent to 3,000 parts per million of sulfur, which it used to be. It improves combustion efficiency. It enhances the air-fuel ratio, promoting a more complete burn of the fuel. So you get fewer emissions, lower soot production, and better engine performance, which usually, but not always, I can't promise it because sometimes it doesn't happen, because fuel economy is so variable. But usually, all things being equal, you'll see a little bump in your fuel economy. And you're going to protect your emissions components by reducing soot and smoke. And it'll protect the emission system sensors, your NOx sensors, everything else. And also because it reduces the soot and smoke, it'll keep your EGR cooler and EGR valve cleaner longer. If you have a 7th injector, it'll keep that from getting gunked up a lot longer. And your DPF will get less clogged less often, which means less downtime and more less money for this guy. But hey, and you know, you're going to get what else? It's going to stabilize your fuel, prevent oxidation of the fuel, degradation over time. Usually you burn the fuel before it's a chance to degrade, but maybe you've got a truck that you park out in a lot once in a while. It's going to dump the water out of that fuel. It's going to make sure that fuel doesn't have any water in it when it gets into the engine. And this stuff has been around for 15 years, over 100 million miles on it, and going strong. So the goal being, you know, fewer forced regens, longer time between DPF cleaning, reduce your maintenance costs, protect your injectors, protect your fuel pump, and all that type of stuff. And it's really a pretty neat thing. Now, again, you might say, oh, it's snake oil, it's this, is that. Well, then, you know, just don't use it. But if you're curious, give it a try. And I am fairly sure you'll be quite happy. I'm going to quick check my YouTube here again. Very good. That's all gone. And hey, if you want to look across the bottom here, if you do want to text additive to 404-999-1361, text additive to 404-999-1361, and we can get your first case out to you and give you a 10% discount on your first order. So there you go. There you have it. And I've got a runny nose all of a sudden. I don't know why. Your questions, my answers. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for all your support. Please leave your questions and comments below, or text your questions directly to us at 404-999-1361, 404-999-1361. And if all goes well, I'll be back here next week to answer more of your questions. Please feel free to type your questions below in the comments on LinkedIn or on YouTube, on Facebook, and let me have a crack at them, do the best I can to answer them. And so thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Yo, we step up in the scene, check your engine is clean. DPF guys got your ride smoking green. No block, no drag, just pure machine. Come show us your truck, we'll make it